You're listening to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I'm Manners, I'm with Jaleesa and Paul, and it's cricket headlines time. And the first headline, well, they've updated the domestic cricket schedule. So there's been some changes to the Sheffield Shield. It's been cut back from 9 rounds to 8 rounds now. So it's normally a 10-round competition. Then there were some problems in the bubble in Adelaide, so it was put back to 9 rounds, and now it's been put back one more round, and that's just taking into account that's taking into account sort of the extra demands on the players and the staff around cricket, and the fact that they just need to get the season done, I think. So it's going to be 8 rounds, and the Marsh 50 over one-day domestic cup will just be a 5-round competition. So I guess every team will play each other once, and then there'll be a final. But the big news to come out is that Pat Cummins has been announced as skipper of the New South Wales domestic 50 over side. So we'll get to see what Cummins does as a captain, and I'm really curious.
Yeah, you've been advocating this for a while, so congratulations, Menners. Your influence grows, but I think it's a good idea as well. You might as well give him a chance to see what he can do.
I'm happy with it.
Good. Jaleesa's happy. All right. Now, Paul, do you want to go through the test from India?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about last week how it was going to be the first test match shown on English free-to-air TV, or terrestrial TV, as they call it for some reason, since 2005. And England had a famous victory. To your point, Jaleesa, early on about your friend getting into it for the first time, I hope she probably didn't switch on and watch this test match, because there was a lot of fairly attritional cricket in the first couple of days.
I think we can safely say she didn't.
I thought that might be the case. But it was a slow burn. But in the end, if you were an English fan and watched it all, I think it would have been a pretty good watch. England mammoth total of 578. Joe Root 218. He has had a beginning of 2021 that is epic. He scored 200 and... What did he score? 200 and... Did I say 200? No, sorry. Joe Root, 218. So he's had a beginning of 2021 that's epic. He scored 228 and 1 against Sri Lanka, 186 and 11 in their next test, and then 218 and 40 in the next test against India. So he scored 684 runs at an average of 114 this year, which includes 2 run-outs and a slog when he was batting with number 11. So he's in career best form. India 337 in reply. England 178, setting India a mammoth 420 odd to win, and they could only make 192. So England won by 227 runs, a famous victory in the subcontinent for them. Did you watch any of the game, either of you?
No, I've really only seen the highlights, I have to be honest. I haven't actually sat down and watched it properly. I've just sort of seen highlights from internet and news bits and things like that.
Yeah, I watched bits and pieces of it. You're right, Dom Sibley, I mean, he is just the most boring player to watch, but he's effective. I mean, he occupied a lot of time, and we've seen how important that can be in Test cricket, just to wear the opposition out. He wore me out watching him, Dom Sibley, so I hope he doesn't come on the Ashes tour next year. He'll turn kids away from cricket. But what struck me was the last day was there was an over Jimmy Anderson bowled where he got 2 wickets and had a close LBW turned down, but he was making the ball talk. I mean, it was incredible bowling, an incredible display of skill, and they've showed his record since before 30 and after 30, and after 30 he's without doubt one of the greatest bowlers of our time. Before 30, his stats show he was an average bowler, but quite incredible. And, you know, in the same week that Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl, Jimmy Anderson does it at 40-odd. I mean, it's doing wonders for the image of ageing athletes.
And Serena Williams is through for the first round of the...
She hasn't won it yet, okay?
This goes to exactly what Paul and I were talking about last week with our frustrations that cricket has this obsession with age, because Anderson is arguably in the best form at the moment, and certainly that over's being called potentially the best over in Test cricket. So how you can sort of doubt that he's going to maybe be here for that he's going to play against us for the Ashes is insane.
Yeah, it was just an amazing performance.
reminds me of that. They used to talk about this over that Michael Holding bowled to Jeff Boycott, and there's no real footage of it because it's kind of the last tour that England ever took place that wasn't kind of covered on any form of television. It was in the West Indies, and Boycott, I think, got 5 absolute unplayable balls, mixture of bouncers and Yorkers that he somehow managed to keep out. And the last ball sent his off stump cartwheeling out of the ground. Everyone said that's possibly the best over in the history of Test cricket. It'd be great if you could line them up because this was obviously very much different. It was reverse swing and incisive bowling from Anderson compared to absolute pure hostility from Holding to one of the most difficult batsmen to get out at the time. So yeah, good on him, and long may he continue.
So, famous victory for England, but it wasn't the most famous victory of the last week in Test cricket because we quite possibly have seen the greatest Test debut in history in the last week. So, Bangladesh are hosting the West Indies, and basically the whole West Indies first team is unavailable. Most of the players are unavailable. There's some there. And it got down to a situation where the West Indies needed 395 runs to win the Test match. And they were 2 for 48, they were 3 for 59, and it looked like it was going to be a pretty easy victory for Bangladesh, bowling on the last day in their conditions. Their spinners would just run through the West Indies. Well, Kyle Mayers, remember the name, Kyle Mayers. He smashed 210 not out of 310 balls with 24s and 7 sixes, and the West Indies won the Test by 3 wickets. It's the highest ever fourth innings chase in Asia by any team. And you look at the chases from India at the you look at the chase from India at the Gabba, this was even better. And just a phenomenal performance. And Mayers did it all himself at the end. The run rate was getting up to 5 runs, 6 runs required and over, and he just went ballistic. So Kyle Mayers, remember that name, Test debut, 210 not out.
One of the things that I love about Test cricket is the epic scope of the history. And to your point that could be the greatest debut innings of all time, you may well be right. And you could almost make an argument right now that if that's roughly the last Test match that's ever been played up till now, that the best 2 debuts in history were in the very first Test match 144 years ago,
Bannerman,
and this most recent Test match. So Bannerman scoring 165, retired hurt, out of a total of 245, so he scored all but 80 runs. To this day, the highest percentage of a team's total that's ever been scored in the history of Test cricket. So there you go, bookending 143 years, maybe the 2 best debuts in history. That's just glorious.
Yeah, phenomenal stuff. If you haven't seen them, go and find the highlights on YouTube of Kyle Mayers 210 not out. Now, Paul, you've got some topics around DRS.
A lot of topics, a lot of criticism this year of the lack of DRS in the Big Bash. And it felt to me like a kind of a critical mass of criticism had been reached, that in previous years they'd been able to deflect it and say it's all just summer fun. But now this year, everyone's been saying it's time for DRS.
I must be the only person disagreeing.
You're the only person I've heard that doesn't want DRS.
I don't want DRS. No.
But what is it like for you then? You're sitting on the couch, Jaleesa, and there's a shocker of a decision by the umpire. Say Glenn Maxwell's given his marching orders. You don't get to see Maxie bat and his huge inside edge and giving out LBW. Don't you think they should fix that?
No, I don't, because I just think it's a different game. I don't think that we need to slow the game up anymore. Because Big Bash is meant to be fast. It's meant to be for my friend like Tiffy, who is not the biggest cricket fan but will go for the entertainment and enjoys the spectacle. I don't want to slow it up. It's we can't deny the Big Bash is not the most serious competition in the world. We don't have to pretend it is, and we don't have to start slowing things up. I don't care if I don't see Maxwell bat once in a game because he got a shit decision. And also, I actually think sometimes the shitty decisions make a bit of drama, and they make a bit of interest around, and remember, like, that happened last time those 2 teams played and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world when you get a shocker.
My issue is more around the look of the game. The fact is there's all these cameras trained on the action. So you
will slow up what is meant to be a quick game.
If you have an obviously bad decision and everyone can see it except the umpire, it just seems to take away from the game, and in a way, it undermines it for me.
What'll happen is you'll end up. And I'm not a fan of constantly going to the bunker in rugby league either. You'll end up overusing
Either
it.
I hate the bunker.
Yeah, exactly, because you've seen it overused, right? You don't see any.
And they get so many of those tries wrong.
You see, I'm not buying into your shit. I'm just ignoring you again. But you see it so overused, and that's what'll happen. And it's not in the spirit of the Big Bash to have this completely delayed game all the time because they're going to review every bloody thing. Like I can't be bothered with it. I want.
What do you think about though? Then we've
seen absolute shockers.
Yeah, but so in the India v England test, they have the no ball system being called by the umpire, the third umpire, and they let out this siren if there's a no ball. I'm not even going to try and do it, but it's a pretty earwormy, annoying noise. But what if they just had a siren and someone's given out, he's sort of trudging off. They probably tell the batters, look, slow down a bit to give him time to have a look, and then just hits a siren, and there's obviously a mistake being made, and he goes back.
No, it's
wouldn't your friend Tiff be like, "Oh, what's the siren for?"
Well, yeah, exactly.
You'd be
What's
like,
the siren
she'd be
for?
so excited.
Exactly.
And
She'd be like, "What's the siren for?" Hang on. So
each batter could pick their own save track.
So he's coming back, and then I'm sitting there explaining why old mate isn't out when he was given out, and blah blah blah. Like, no, I just don't see the need to have everything perfect. I just see it is what it is. Look,
you're in the minority.
I like it in Test match cricket because you're in for a long day. You know what you're getting into. This is not in the spirit of the Big Bash. It doesn't have to be perfect.
I would agree with you, except for one thing. And the one thing is that DRS is the most entertaining feature of the entire sport. The bit where you're watching...
You, Paul.
No.
For you.
I agree it can go on too long.
I can't wait till the last wicket loses its total climax because we're sitting there waiting to see if it's actually out or not. Great. Woo.
Gains because of the fact that, I've said it so many times, you go to any household that the cricket is on and people are half watching. The minute it goes to, there's a review here, everyone's watching.
No, admit there's a wicket, everyone's watching.
Everyone's watching after a wicket, but I'm saying if there's a big appeal for LBW and it's given not out, and suddenly the fielding team reviews it, the next few seconds the entire room is suddenly stopped and watching. And I agree that they can go on too long sometimes trying to see if there's an inside edge. So I'm all for.
And it will. If you think that we can do it quickly, you can't. It will go on, and then it'll be like, now we need to improve DRS, and we need to get 5 more camera angles, and we need to look at it for 5 more minutes.
And why isn't hotspot in the Big Bash?
Why isn't hotspot? Exactly. It'll just end up being like, it'll just take all the fun out of it and become this fucking anal game.
Aren't all tries this year of the NRL going to be compulsorily going to the bunker?
Don't get me started. No, but the way they actually are doing that is kind of how Menners was suggesting, where that's going to be quietly reviewed and then only pulled back if there is actually a problem. But I'm not for reviewing shit all the time. I don't like it in Hawkeye and tennis.
You don't like Hawkeye and tennis?
I mean, I don't mind it. I just sort of sometimes I do question when I see something and I think, geez, that looked real out and it's really, and I'm like, how accurate is this?
Very accurate. That's why you need Hawkeye, because your eyes have got it wrong.
Once upon a time, Paul, the brightest people in the world thought it was flat. So I do
they
question
didn't.
this technology.
That's a misnomer. That the world has known to be around for far longer than people think. There's been thousands of years before people thought the world was flat.
Point.
There are plenty of Trump supporters who think the world is still flat. Don't you worry about that. Well, we're going to go around in circles on this one, but I hope they institute something next year, because I think it's actually unfair on the umpires now. You cannot have all the endless replays and putting their performance under the microscope and not giving them anything to help.
I agree with that. And I also think that it has reached the point now where I remember when Run Out first came in, the review for Run Out. And I remember Michael Slater was interviewed and they asked him, what's the thing you like least about cricket? And he said, the third umpire reviews for Run Out. It takes the human element out of the game. And there was a long group of people who agreed with that. But it got to a point where now if you took out the Run Out one, and people said, this is wrong. Like, it's part of the game. I think that now that the IPL has it, and that it's sort of become part of the furniture, I think the longer we go without it, it will start to look more and more like an outlier.
I'm really curious how you're going to go with the DRS and the Big Bash next season, Jaleesa. I think you'll enjoy it, actually.
Well, they've got to get enough money and argue over who's going to pay for it.
They're going to
first.
have it. They will definitely have it.
Can we put a bet on it?
Well, we can put a bet on it, and whatever you want to bet.
Whatever I want to bet.
Yeah, because I know I'm going to win, so I'm ready.
Oh, the deeds to the castle.
Okay.
They should get rid of the drinks break. Get rid of the 2 drinks breaks that occupy 2 minutes of meaningless time, and then we'll satisfy both.
The only way I think DRS could kind of work, but I still think it'll take the fun out of it when you're at the game, is because you do have a lot more chatting on the mics. So I think that could fill some of the dead air that's going to inevitably come. But
they'll play the umpire's voice over the stereo at the ground.
And there'll be music.
Boring.
There'll be music,
Boring.
dancing.
Gee, oh wow! I get to listen
Kiss
to
cam.
I get to listen to the umpire's voice.
Hopefully they'll bring back Kiss
sign
cam.
me up.
That's been the greatest tragedy of COVID. No Kiss cam.
Kiss cam. Oh, I like the Lion King one. You didn't.
I didn't see that one.
What? It was like 3 times in the final.
I was
They
busy.
played
I
Lion
was
King
busy
and people held their
watching
kids
the
up. I tried to
action
get my friend to help
in
me
the
up.
middle. All right, we'll take another break. That was the cricket headlines brought to you by Piccolo Podcasts.